The cafeteria on Zenith Station was nothing like the ones back on Earth. Instead of the usual noise of teenagers laughing and phones buzzing, there were clicks, whistles, and sounds that didn't quite fit into any human language. Species from all over the galaxy sat in their own little groups, eating foods that ranged from normal-looking to downright disturbing. Tyler sat alone at a corner table, picking at something the food dispenser claimed was Earth-style protein. It tasted like cardboard mixed with disappointment, but he wasn't really focused on the food anyway. He was watching. Being the new kid was hard enough back home in Colorado. Being the new kid on an alien space station where humans were still considered the awkward newcomers to galactic society? That was a whole different level of lonely. His eyes drifted across the massive room, taking in the incredible diversity. There were the Quilix, these tall bird-like creatures with feathers that changed colors when they got excited. The Dravith sat in the center tables, their scaled skin gleaming under the artificial lights, looking every bit like the popular kids they apparently were. And then there were dozens of other species Tyler couldn't even name yet. That's when he noticed her. She sat by herself near the far wall, hunched over a data tablet, trying to make herself as small as possible. At first glance, Tyler thought she might be pretty by her species standards. She had this sleek, almost human-like form, but her skin was different. It should have been glowing, he realized, watching the other members of her species across the room. Their skin shifted with colors like living mood rings, pulsing with soft light that seemed to communicate something beyond words. But this girl's skin was dull. Scarred. Deep marks ran across her face and down her arms, tissue that looked like it had been badly burned or torn. The scars didn't glow at all. They just sat there, dark and still against skin that barely shimmered. Tyler felt something twist in his gut. He knew that posture. He'd seen it before in the hallways back home. The way someone carries themselves when they're used to being invisible, or worse, used to being seen for all the wrong reasons. Hey, look, it's the broken light. The voice cut through the cafeteria noise like a knife. Tyler's attention snapped to a group approaching the girls' table. Leading them was Dravik, a Velrati who'd made it his mission to let everyone know he was at the top of the social food chain. He was bigger than most species here, with dark purple skin and these ridge patterns that apparently marked him as some kind of elite back on his homeworld. The girl, whose name Tyler would later learn was Vera, tensed but didn't look up from her tablet. What's wrong? Dravik continued, his translator device making sure everyone could understand his mockery. Too ashamed to show us that ruined face? Can't even glow like a real Keltharian. His friends laughed, a mixed chorus of different species all united in their cruelty. Tyler's hands clenched into fists. He'd seen this exact scene play out 100 times on Earth. Different faces, different reasons, but the same ugly core. Bullies were apparently universal. Maybe she should transfer to the waste processing level, one of Dravik's friends added. At least down there, no one has to look at her. Something inside Tyler moved before his brain caught up. He stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Several nearby students turned to look at him, this random human kid who'd barely been on the station 2 weeks. But before Tyler could take a step, an older student, a Quilix named Ren, put a wing gently on his shoulder. Don't, Ren said quietly. Dravik's family has influence. And humans are still new here. You don't want that kind of attention. Tyler looked at Ren, then back at Vera. She was gathering her things with shaking hands, trying to leave while Dravik and his crew continued their performance for the growing audience. On Earth, Tyler said slowly, we have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Ren's feathers flattened against his body, a sign Tyler had learned meant worry. This isn't Earth. Yeah, Tyler agreed, watching Vera hurry toward the exit, her scarred face turned away from the crowd. I'm starting to see that. You guys have faster-than-light travel and artificial gravity, but you're still figuring out basic decency. Ren didn't have a response to that. That night, lying in his small dorm room, Tyler couldn't stop thinking about Vera. About the way she tried to make herself invisible. About the casual cruelty of students who should have known better. About the fact that he'd done nothing. His mom had raised him better than that. Before she died, she'd always told him that standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves wasn't just the right thing to do, it was the only thing that mattered. Tomorrow, Tyler decided. Tomorrow would be different. He didn't know it yet, but that decision would change everything, not just for him and Vera, but for the entire station. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness creates ripples that spread farther than anyone could imagine. And sometimes, those ripples turn into waves. The commons area was packed during the lunch break. Students from every corner of the galaxy gathered there between classes, making it the social heart of Zenith Station. Tyler had been keeping an eye out for Vera all morning, hoping to maybe introduce himself properly, tell her that not everyone on this station was a complete jerk. He spotted her near the viewing window, that massive transparent wall that looked out into the stars. She was alone, as usual, staring at her data tablet. But something felt off today. The crowd seemed thicker around her section, and Tyler noticed students whispering and pointing. Then he heard Dravik's voice boom across the commons. There she is, everyone. The station's favorite decoration. Dravik had brought his whole crew this time, at least 6 or 7 other students, all wearing those smug expressions that bullies seem to perfect across every species. Vera's shoulders hunched. She tried to walk away, but Dravik's friend, a stocky Dravith named Krell, blocked her path. Where are you going? Dravik circled around her like a predator. We just wanted to get a closer look at those beautiful scars. Really, they're fascinating. I've never seen a Keltharian so completely broken before. The crowd was growing. Some students looked uncomfortable, but no one moved. No one said anything. They just watched like this was entertainment. Tyler felt his heart pounding. He pushed through the outer ring of spectators. You know what I heard? Dravik continued, his voice dripping with false curiosity. I heard that Keltharians with damaged skin like yours can't even bond properly. Can't communicate emotions. Basically defective. He leaned closer. Tell me, Broken Light, can you even feel shame right now? Or is that ruined skin too dead to show it? Vera's hands were shaking. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor, and Tyler could see her trying to hold back tears. The worst part was her skin, those scars that couldn't shift color or glow. On Earth, no one would see the full extent of her humiliation. But here, everyone with working Keltharian skin could probably read emotions through light and color. Her inability to express herself that way made her isolation even more complete. Hey. Tyler's voice wasn't loud, but something in his tone made Dravik pause. The crowd parted as Tyler walked through. That's enough. Dravik turned, and a slow smile spread across his face. Oh, look. The human wants to play hero. How adorable. Did they teach you about cross-species social dynamics at your primitive little academy? Because you're way out of your depth here, Earth boy. Tyler ignored him. He walked straight to Vera, who finally looked up, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Up close, Tyler could see the scars more clearly. They weren't ugly like Dravik claimed. They were proof of survival, proof of pain endured. They reminded him of his uncle's burned scars from his time as a firefighter, marks the old man wore with quiet pride. Hi, Tyler said softly to Vera. I'm Tyler. And I need you to trust me for just a second, okay? Before she could respond, before his own nervous brain could talk him out of it, Tyler gently placed his hands on either side of her scarred face. The commons went dead silent. Physical contact between species was rare on the station. Most aliens found it uncomfortable or even taboo. Vera froze, her breath catching. Tyler looked directly into her eyes, those beautiful amber eyes that held so much hurt, and then he leaned forward and pressed his lips to her forehead. A soft kiss, gentle and deliberate. Then another on her left cheek, right over one of the deeper scars. Then her right cheek. Then along her jawline where the tissue was twisted and dark. He heard gasps from the crowd. Someone made a shocked chirping sound. But Tyler didn't stop until he'd kissed every visible scar on her face, treating each one like it was something precious. When he pulled back, Vera was staring at him like he'd just spoken in a language she'd forgotten existed. Where I come from, Tyler said, his voice steady and clear enough for the whole commons to hear, scars aren't something to be ashamed of. They're proof. Proof that you faced something terrible and survived. Proof that you're stronger than whatever tried to break you. He gently squeezed her shoulders. And they're beautiful. You're beautiful. The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Then Dravik laughed, but it sounded nervous, uncertain. That's disgusting. Some primitive human mating ritual? You think your backward customs mean anything here? Tyler turned to face him, and the expression on his face made Dravik take an involuntary step back. You want to know what's primitive? Cruelty. Mocking someone for surviving trauma. Making yourself feel big by making someone else feel small. He looked around at the crowd. My species nearly wiped itself out because we couldn't see past skin color, couldn't see past differences. We had wars, genocides, centuries of hatred over the stupidest reasons. And you know what we learned? That it's not someone's face or their body or their abilities that make them valuable. It's their heart. Their courage. The choice they make every single day to keep going despite people like you. Tyler gestured to Vera, who was still standing there, tears now openly streaming down her scarred cheeks. She shows up here every day knowing she'll face your mockery. She studies, she works, she exists in a place that treats her like she's broken. That takes more courage than anything you've ever done, Dravik. So yeah, maybe humans are primitive. But at least we learned that beauty isn't skin deep. The crowd was murmuring now, a mix of languages and sounds, but the tone had shifted. Some students were looking at Dravik with new eyes. Others were looking at Vera differently too, really seeing her maybe for the first time. Dravik's face darkened with anger. You have no idea what you just started, human. Good, Tyler replied. I was hoping I'd get your attention. He turned back to Vera and offered his hand. After a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her skin was warm, slightly textured from the scars, and her grip was trembling. Together, they walked through the crowd toward the exit. And as they passed, something incredible happened. One student, a small Quillix that Tyler had seen eating alone sometimes, started a slow tapping sound with their wing against their leg. Then another joined. And another. It wasn't quite applause, not in the human sense. But it was acknowledgement. Recognition. And in that moment, walking hand in hand with an alien girl he just met, Tyler realized that maybe humanity's greatest export to the galaxy wasn't technology or science. It was the hard-won knowledge that kindness matters more than conformity, and that standing up for someone is worth whatever consequences follow. By the next morning, everyone on Zenith Station knew what had happened. Tyler's dorm room communication panel had been blinking with messages since dawn. Some were supportive. Others were definitely not. One message simply read, "Humans should stay out of galactic social structures." Another said, "Thank you for what you did." Tyler was pulling on his academy jacket when his door chimed. Standing outside was Ren, the Quillix who'd warned him not to get involved the day before. "You've caused quite the disturbance," Ren said, his feathers rippling with what Tyler had learned was amusement. "Yeah, I'm getting that impression. The administration wants to see you. Third level, headmaster's office." "And Tyler?" Ren's voice dropped lower. "Be careful what you say. Cross-species physical contact is technically allowed, but it's discouraged. They'll be looking for a reason to make an example." Great. Just great. The headmaster's office was intimidating by design. Headmaster Queln was a Valyrian, a species known for their strict adherence to protocols and regulations. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, with crystalline skin that refracted light in sharp angles. "Mr. Brooks," she began, her translator rendering her voice in clipped, formal tones. "I've reviewed the recordings from yesterday's incident in the Commons area." Tyler's stomach dropped. Of course there were recordings. This was a space station with technology centuries ahead of Earth. "While I appreciate that you were attempting to defend a fellow student," Queln continued, "your actions were highly irregular. Physical contact between species, especially of such an intimate nature, can create complications. Cultural misunderstandings. Diplomatic incidents." "With respect, Headmaster," Tyler said, trying to keep his voice steady, "the only incident I saw was a student being bullied in front of dozens of witnesses who did nothing." Queln's crystalline features somehow managed to convey disapproval. "The social dynamics between non-human species are complex, Mr. Brooks. What appears to be bullying to you may be accepted behavior in other cultures. Is cruelty really cultural? Because from where I'm standing, making someone feel worthless looks the same in any language." There was a long pause. Finally, Queln sighed, a sound like wind through a crystal cave. "You're not being disciplined, Mr. Brooks. Consider this a warning. This station operates on delicate social balances. Try not to upset them further." She waved a hand in dismissal. "You may go." Tyler left the office frustrated but relieved. No official punishment, at least. But as he walked through the corridors toward his first class, he noticed something had changed. Students stared at him openly now. Some with curiosity, others with hostility, and a few with something that looked like respect. He found Vera in the astrophysics lab during free period. She was alone, working on calculations that looked impossibly complex to Tyler's eyes. When she noticed him, she quickly looked down, her scarred fingers trembling slightly over the controls. "Hey," Tyler said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Mind if I sit?" She gestured to the seat beside her, still not meeting his eyes. They sat in silence for a moment. Tyler had never been great at knowing what to say in situations like this. Back on Earth, His mom used to joke that he had a hero complex but the communication skills of a brick. Why did you do it? Vera's voice was quiet, barely above a whisper. It was the first time he'd heard her speak. Her accent was melodic, with these subtle harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't reproduce. Do what? Stop Dravik from being a jerk. Touch me. Kiss my. She gestured vaguely at her face, unable to finish the sentence. Tyler thought about how to explain. Back on Earth, my mom used to work at a hospital. Burn unit. I'd visit sometimes, and I'd see people with scars way worse than anything I'd ever imagined. And you know what I learned? The scars weren't the problem. The way people looked at them was the problem. The way society made them feel like they had to hide. Vera finally looked at him, those amber eyes searching his face. Your scars aren't ugly, Vera. They're part of your story. And anyone who can't see past them to the person underneath? That's their failure, not yours. Her eyes welled with tears. You don't understand what it's like. Keltharians communicate through our skin. The colors, the patterns, they're how we express ourselves. Without that, She struggled for words, I'm voiceless. Invisible. Even my own family looks at me with pity. Tyler felt a surge of anger at that. Not at Vera, but at a universe that could be so advanced in technology and so backward in compassion. Then they're idiots, he said bluntly. Because you're one of the smartest people I've seen on this station. Your work here, he gestured at her calculations, I don't understand half of it, but I can tell it's brilliant. That's not invisible. That's extraordinary. For the first time since he'd met her, Vera smiled. It was small, hesitant, but genuine. You really are very strange for a human. I'll take that as a compliment. Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. Tyler started sitting with Vera at meals, and slowly, cautiously, others joined them. First came Jackson, another human student who'd been too intimidated to approach Tyler before. Then Beth, a human girl studying xenobiology who was fascinated by Keltharian biology and had 100 respectful questions for Vera. A Quilix engineer named Tessa joined one afternoon, admitting she'd always wanted to collaborate with Vera on a project but had been too afraid of social backlash. Then came others, a shy Tyrellian, a rebellious Dravith who was tired of his species' superiority complex, even a young Valerian who admitted his own people's rigidity frustrated him. Their table grew from 2 to 5 to nearly a dozen within a week. But success breeds resentment. Dravik watched from across the cafeteria, his expression darkening with each new addition to what students were starting to call the outcasts table. Tyler noticed him conferring with his friends, pointing in their direction, clearly planning something. It came to a head one evening in the training halls. Tyler was practicing in one of the human gravity sections when Dravik appeared with his entire crew. Human, Dravik announced loudly enough for everyone in the facility to hear. I challenge you to a contest of dominance. Traditional Velrati rules. Tyler's blood ran cold. He'd read about these contests. They were brutal, regulated only enough to prevent permanent damage, but designed to establish social hierarchy through physical prowess. Velrati were naturally stronger, faster, and more durable than humans. This wasn't a fight. It was a beating waiting to happen. And if I refuse? Dravik smiled, showing too many teeth. Then everyone knows the human who talks big about courage is actually a coward. And by extension, so is everyone who sits at your table. Especially your scarred little friend. There it was. Tyler could walk away, but Dravik would make sure Vera paid the price for it. The bullying would get worse. The small community they'd built would crumble under the weight of social pressure. Tyler thought about his mom, about the stories she'd told him of standing up even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Fine, Tyler said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. When and where? Dravik's smile widened. Tomorrow evening. Main arena. Let's see if human courage is more than just words. As Dravik and his friends left, laughing among themselves, Tyler realized he'd just agreed to something that could end very badly. But looking across the facility to where Vera had been watching with horror on her scarred face, he knew he'd made the only choice he could live with. Sometimes courage wasn't about winning. It was about showing up anyway. The arena was packed. Word had spread through the station like wildfire, and it seemed like every student at Zenith Academy had shown up to watch the human get destroyed. Tyler stood in the preparation room, staring at his reflection in the polished metal wall. His hands were shaking, but he couldn't tell if it was fear or adrenaline. You don't have to do this. Tyler turned to see Vera standing in the doorway, her scarred face twisted with worry. Behind her stood Jackson, Beth, and a few others from their growing group. "Yeah, I do," Tyler said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "If I back out now, Dravik wins. He gets to keep making your life miserable, and everyone learns that standing up to him means nothing." "But you could get seriously hurt," Vera protested. "Velrati physiology is designed for combat. Their bone density is twice that of humans, their muscle fiber is more efficient, and their reaction time is—" "I know the stats," Tyler interrupted gently. "I spent all night reading about them. Trust me, I'm aware this is a bad idea." Beth stepped forward, holding out a small device. "At least take this. It's a medical monitor. If your vitals drop to dangerous levels, it'll automatically alert the medics and stop the fight." Tyler clipped it to his wrist. "Thanks." Jackson, who'd barely said 2 words to Tyler since they'd met, suddenly spoke up. "My dad was a boxer back on Earth. He used to say that sometimes it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how much you can take and keep moving forward." Tyler nodded, appreciating the sentiment even as his stomach churned with nerves. The arena's announcement system crackled to life. "Competitors to the floor. 5 minutes." This was it. The arena itself was a circular platform about 30 meters across, surrounded by energy barriers to protect spectators. The stands were filled with hundreds of alien faces, all watching with various expressions of anticipation or concern. Tyler spotted Dravik on the opposite side, stretching and looking completely relaxed. Why wouldn't he be? This was going to be easy for him. Headmaster Queln stood at the center, her crystalline form catching the light. "This is an official contest of dominance under Velrati tradition," she announced. "The rules are simple. No weapons. No lethal force. The contest ends when one participant yields, is rendered unconscious, or the medical systems detect critical injury. Do both participants accept these terms?" "Accepted," Dravik said immediately, his voice full of confidence. Tyler swallowed hard. "Accepted." Queln stepped back. "Begin." Dravik didn't waste time with posturing. He came at Tyler like a freight train, faster than Tyler expected despite all his research. The first hit caught Tyler in the ribs, sending him stumbling backward. Pain exploded through his side. It felt like getting hit with a baseball bat swung by someone who really meant it. The crowd roared with mixed reactions. Some cheered for Dravik. Others, Tyler noticed with surprise, were chanting his name. Tyler barely dodged the next strike, but the third one caught him across the jaw. His vision blurred. Blood filled his mouth. He hit the ground hard, and every instinct screamed at him to stay down, to yield, to end this before it got worse. But he thought about Vera sitting in that cafeteria, alone and mocked. He thought about his mom, who'd fought cancer for 3 years and never complained once. He thought about every person who'd ever been told they weren't good enough, strong enough, or worth defending. Tyler got up. Dravik looked momentarily surprised, then amused. Impressive. But stupid. He charged again. This time Tyler was ready. He couldn't match Dravik's strength or speed, but humans had one advantage that most species in the galaxy didn't fully understand. Humans were endurance hunters. Back on Earth, before technology, humans hunted by simply outlasting their prey. Running for hours, days if necessary, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Tyler couldn't win a power contest. But maybe he could survive. He started moving, constantly circling, making Dravik chase him. Every hit that landed hurt like hell, but Tyler had read that Velrati burned energy faster than humans. Their explosive strength came at a cost. He just had to last long enough for that cost to matter. Minutes felt like hours. Tyler's face was swelling, his ribs screamed with every breath, and his left eye was nearly swollen shut. But he kept moving. Kept getting up. And slowly, gradually, he noticed Dravik was slowing down too. The Velrati strikes were still powerful, but they were coming a fraction of a second slower. "Stay down." Dravik snarled after knocking Tyler to the ground for what must have been the 10th time. "Why won't you just stay down?" Tyler spat blood and pulled himself up once more. "Because," he gasped, "that's what humans do. We endure." Something shifted in the crowd. The chanting grew louder. Not just humans now, but other species joining in. "Tyler! Tyler! Tyler!" Dravik charged again, but this time Tyler saw an opening. He sidestepped at the last second and used Dravik's own momentum to send him stumbling. It wasn't much, but it was the first time Tyler had landed any kind of successful move. The crowd went wild. For the next several minutes, the fight became something different. Tyler stopped trying to avoid all damage and started accepting hits to land his own. He used technique over strength, speed over power. He fought smart, fought dirty when he had to, and most importantly, he refused to quit. Dravik was breathing hard now, frustrated and tired. Tyler was bleeding, battered, probably concussed, but still standing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Headmaster Queln's voice rang out. Stalemate. Both competitors have reached medical thresholds. The contest is declared a draw. A draw. Not a win, but not a loss either. Tyler had survived. The arena exploded with noise. Dravik stood there, disbelief written across his face. He'd never had a fight go to a draw before, especially not with a human who should have been easy to defeat. Medical staff rushed onto the platform. Tyler's legs finally gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. The pain was overwhelming now that the adrenaline was fading. But through his swollen eyes, he saw Vera pushing through the crowd, her scarred face streaked with tears. She dropped to her knees beside him as the medics began their work. You crazy, stupid, wonderful human, she said, her voice breaking. Tyler managed a painful smile. Did I make my point? You made everyone's point, Jackson said, appearing beside Vera. The whole station's talking about it. Nobody's ever forced Dravik to a draw. Beth knelt down too, scanning Tyler with a medical device. You've got 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and more bruises than I can count. But you'll heal. As the medics loaded Tyler onto a hover stretcher, he caught sight of Dravik standing alone on the far side of the arena. Their eyes met for a moment. Tyler saw something there he hadn't expected, not hatred, but something closer to respect. Or maybe confusion. Like Dravik couldn't quite figure out how someone so much weaker had refused to break. Later that night, in the medical bay, Tyler lay in a bed designed for human physiology while his friends gathered around. Vera sat closest, her hand carefully holding his uninjured one. You asked me yesterday why I did what I did, Tyler said, his voice raspy from the breathing tube the medics had used. It's because I saw something in you that maybe you couldn't see in yourself. Strength. Real strength. Not the kind that comes from muscles or social status, but the kind that keeps you showing up even when the world tells you you're not wanted. Vera's damaged skin tried to glow with emotion, flickering imperfectly in the dim light. You showed everyone that today. That's exactly what you did. Tyler squeezed her hand gently. Then I guess we both learned something. You're not broken, and I'm a lot tougher than I look. Around them, their little group of outcasts laughed softly. And somewhere outside the medical bay, across the station, conversations were happening. Students questioning old prejudices. Reconsidering what strength really meant. Looking at the human who'd refused to quit and wondering what other assumptions they'd gotten wrong. One fight hadn't changed everything. But it had started something. And sometimes, that's all it takes. 3 weeks had passed since the fight. Tyler's ribs had healed, the swelling had gone down, and he'd finally stopped looking like he'd gone 10 rounds with a freight train. But the real changes on Zenith Station went far deeper than his fading bruises. It started small. A Quillic student named Tessa approached Vera in the library, asking if she could collaborate on an astrophysics project. Then a Torellian who'd always eaten alone asked if he could join their table. Within days, their little group of outcasts had grown to nearly 20 students from a dozen different species. But the most surprising change came from Dravik himself. Tyler was studying in the commons when the Velrati appeared, alone this time, without his usual entourage. The conversations around them died down as everyone watched to see what would happen. Human, Dravik said, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. May I speak with you? Tyler glanced at Vera, who sat beside him looking nervous. Sure. Sit. Dravik remained standing for a moment, clearly uncomfortable. Finally, he sat across from them, his large frame making the station furniture look like children's toys. I've been thinking about our fight, Dravik began, stumbling over the words. About what you said. About endurance. He paused, his scaled hands clenching and unclenching on the table. On my world, strength is everything. Physical dominance determines your entire life. I was raised to believe that power equals worth. Tyler waited, saying nothing. But you didn't have power, Dravik continued. You should have lost in the first minute. Every calculation said you would. Yet you didn't. And I couldn't understand why. He looked up, meeting Tyler's eyes. I still don't fully understand. But I'm beginning to think maybe my world got some things wrong. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was something. Tyler could see the effort it took for Dravik to admit this, to question everything he'd been raised to believe. Strength comes in different forms, Tyler said carefully. Physical power is one. But there's also the strength to admit when you're wrong. The strength to change. That takes guts too. Dravik nodded slowly, then turned to Vera. His next words came even harder. I was cruel to you. I said things that were inexcusable. I told myself I was just following social norms, that I was pointing out obvious flaws. But I was wrong. Your scars don't make you less. And I'm? He struggled with the word, sorry. Vera sat in stunned silence. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I accept your apology. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. After Dravik left, Vera turned to Tyler with tears in her eyes. Did that really just happen? Yeah, Tyler said, still processing it himself. I think it did. The changes kept spreading. In their xenosociology class, Professor Thane, a wise old Valerian, started a discussion about prejudice and social dynamics. The conversation that followed was raw and honest, with students from various species sharing their own experiences with discrimination. Some admitted to being bullies themselves, others talked about being victims. The classroom that had once been full of unspoken tensions became a place where real dialogue happened. Vera surprised everyone, including herself, by speaking up. For cycles, I believed I was broken, she said, her voice shaking but steady. I thought my scars made me worthless because I couldn't express emotions the way my people do. But someone showed me that there are other ways to communicate. That words and actions matter more than appearance. She glanced at Tyler. He showed me that surviving doesn't make you broken. It makes you strong. The classroom erupted in that multi-species sound of approval, clicks and whistles and hums all blending together. After class, Professor Thane asked to speak with Vera privately. Tyler waited outside, worried that somehow they'd gotten in trouble. But when Vera emerged, her scarred face was attempting to glow with joy, flickering with imperfect light. He wants me to start a support group, she said breathlessly. For students who face discrimination or feel like they don't belong. The Academy is officially sponsoring it. Tyler grinned. That's amazing. Are you going to do it? I think so. But I'll need help. She looked at him meaningfully. Would you co-lead it with me? And so, the following week, they held their first meeting in one of the smaller conference rooms. Tyler expected maybe 5 or 6 students. Instead, nearly 30 showed up. Species he'd never even spoken to before. Students who'd been hiding their own struggles, their own feelings of not fitting in. There was Kess, a Dravith who was terrible at the combat skills her species prized. There was Ren, the Quillix who'd been Tyler's first friend on the station, who admitted he'd been too afraid to stand out. There was Beth, who talked about being a human in a galaxy that still saw Earth as primitive. Even a few of Dravik's former friends showed up, looking uncomfortable but determined. Vera spoke first, sharing her story. Then others followed. The room filled with stories of pain and isolation, but also of hope and resilience. By the end of the meeting, students who'd never spoken before were exchanging contact information, making plans to study together, offering support. As everyone filed out, Tyler felt something he hadn't felt since leaving Earth. Purpose. Like maybe he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Over the following weeks, the support group became a fixture of station life. What started as 30 students grew to 50, then 70. They organized social events, study groups, and even started a mentoring program for new students arriving at the academy. The cafeteria changed too. The rigid social boundaries that had separated species began to blur. Tables mixed in ways they never had before. It wasn't perfect, old prejudices died hard, but it was progress. 4 months after that day in the Commons, Vera did something that would have been unthinkable before. She submitted her research on quantum field harmonics to the Galactic Youth Science Symposium, a prestigious competition that drew entries from across known space. Tyler found her in the lab, staring at her data screen with wide eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately concerned. "Nothing's wrong," she whispered. "I got accepted. They want me to present at the symposium. In front of actual scientists and academics from hundreds of worlds." Tyler grabbed her in a hug, spinning her around despite her surprised squeak. "That's incredible. I told you your work was brilliant." The day of the presentation arrived. The symposium was broadcast live across multiple systems, and Zenith Station set up viewing screens in the main commons so students could watch. Tyler sat in the front row of those gathered, surrounded by their entire friend group. When Vera appeared on screen, Standing before an audience of hundreds of the galaxy's brightest minds, Tyler felt his chest swell with pride. She wore a formal Keltharian garment, but she didn't hide her scars. She stood tall, confident, and began her presentation with a clear, steady voice. Her research was groundbreaking, proposing new methods for stable wormhole generation using quantum field manipulation. Tyler understood maybe 10% of it, but he could see the impressed expressions on the faces in the symposium audience. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Questions came from decorated scientists and professors, and Vera answered each one with expertise and grace. She didn't win first place, that went to a Valerian student with a project on dimensional physics, but she placed third out of nearly 500 entries. Third in the entire galaxy. That night, they threw a celebration in the commons. Students from every species came to congratulate Vera, including Dravik, who'd slowly been rebuilding his reputation through genuine effort and changed behavior. Tyler found Vera on the observation deck later, staring out at the stars like she had that first day he'd really noticed her. "How does it feel?" he asked, standing beside her. "Surreal," she admitted. 6 months ago, I couldn't imagine standing in front of 3 people without wanting to disappear. Now I've presented to the entire galactic scientific community. You earned it. All of it." Vera turned to him, her scarred face catching the starlight. Her damaged skin flickered with that imperfect glow, but Tyler had learned to read the emotion behind it. Gratitude. Joy. And something deeper. You changed my life, Tyler Brooks. You and your strange human ideas about courage and kindness. Tyler smiled. You changed mine too. You showed me that one person speaking up really can make a difference. That standing up for what's right matters, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, Vera corrected. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go from the station's docking ports. Behind them, through the windows, they could see their friends laughing and celebrating together. A community that hadn't existed before. A family they'd built from kindness and courage. So what now? Vera asked. We've started something here. Where does it go? Tyler thought about that. About Earth and all the hard lessons humanity had learned. About the prejudices they'd overcome and the ones they were still fighting. About the fact that progress was never a straight line, but a constant choice to do better. Now we keep going, he said simply. We keep standing up for people who need it. We keep building this community. We keep showing everyone that differences make us stronger, not weaker. And when we graduate and leave this station, we take these lessons with us. We spread them wherever we go. Vera's hand found his, their fingers intertwining naturally. Together? Together, Tyler confirmed. And as they stood there, 2 young people from different worlds who'd found friendship and purpose in the most unexpected way, the future felt full of possibility. The galaxy was vast, ancient, and full of species with millennia of history. But maybe, just maybe, humanity's newest contribution wouldn't be technology or warfare. Maybe it would be the simple, revolutionary idea that everyone deserves dignity. That scars tell stories worth hearing. That kindness is never wasted. And that one person choosing courage can create ripples that change everything. After all, that's what humans did best. They endured. They adapted. And they never stopped believing that tomorrow could be better than today, as long as someone was brave enough to make it so.